Hello, this is Brian from Old Bodies Outside, and today I am super excited to chat with Megan Taylor. She runs and owns a company called Belay Expeditions, and she takes her clients on all kinds of adventures, including backpacking, mountaineering, bike packing, and this happens domestically, it happens internationally, and she helps get people out into these adventures. She provides a very accessible service. She says that if you can walk around your neighborhood for an hour without any gear on, you're ready to go. And additionally, what's so awesome about Belay Expeditions is that Megan has a big background in researching spirituality, awe. She's done intensive studies into depression and happiness. So Belay Expeditions, although there's this physical component of going deep into the wilderness and checking out these really cool locations, there is a long-lasting psychological effect that Megan focuses on with her expeditions. And that's something that is just so wonderful. So Megan, thanks for coming on today and joining me.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's good to see you. So you're calling in from Salida, Colorado?
Yes.
Okay, I came prepared to, I don't know if you can see on my video, I wore a hat from the Trailhead shop in Buena Vista just for today's episode.
I love that. BV was the town that brought me to the Ark River Valley. So nice. I have a special place in my heart for BV, for sure.
Yeah, I love visiting there. It's a place that me and my wife vacationed in 2 Junes ago and just loved it. And I'm for this upcoming summer 2023, there is a race out there, an ultramarathon called High Lonesome West, and I'm going to try and get into it. It's a lottery, and so we'll see what happens with that. But man, those mountains, what do they call it? Is it the Collegiate Peaks behind Buena Vista? Yeah, so lovely and so fun. Man, so I wanted to get going on your story today. And one of the things that Megan and I have in common is we were actually in grad school together, and we were doing all kinds of intensive studies and supporting each other and getting together here and there and just navigating that long process. And Megan did something that was at the time like, oh my gosh, she left grad school, and she left grad school to go be an entrepreneur. And I think it has worked out phenomenally. She is such a great example in the community. She's a female entrepreneur. She has a company that's a women business enterprise. It's just amazing. So Megan, at the time being when you left grad school, that's not, a normal thing to do. Not too many people do it. How'd that go for you? And how did that kind of become a beautiful journey for you?
Well, I think it's really important that everybody should know that I didn't leave grad school to become an entrepreneur. I left grad school not knowing what I was going to do. I just knew I needed to leave grad school. So the entrepreneurship aspect came later. But I think, grad school, when I say grad school, I'm going to talk PhD, not my master's program, but my PhD grad school taught me a lot of incredible things that have impacted my life today, as well as Belay Expeditions. Everything I studied during my PhD plays into Belay Expeditions, but it also played into my personal life. And I knew, I did the PhD thing for 4 years, and I was constant in there. I think there was just a very slow onset of depression that occurred with each passing year. And it wasn't that I didn't love my studies. I loved my studies, and my advisors were awesome, and my friends were awesome. But there was just something that just wasn't setting well with me. And I would leave to go on adventures to kind of restore for the next semester of grad school, right? And, there was even a time where we're allowed to take a year off of PhD school. No questions. You don't get kicked out of the program. You just get to take a year off. And I'm like, I'm going to take that, and I'm going to go contemplate what I need in life, because I'm kind of depressed in grad school, but I don't know what I'm going to do. So I left for a year and went to the Maine wilderness and lived in a cabin, and I just contemplated every single day, and I read and I journaled, which is what I wanted out of life. And I did a bunch of those practices throughout probably my third and fourth year of grad school. I did a bunch of like meditation practices and journaling practices just to kind of like unearth what was it that I was after in life, because the PhD thing wasn't fulfilling me in the happiness element, even though I loved what I studied and I lived by what I studied. And so it was in my like fourth year, I was in Hawaii, cycling around Hawaii, teaching online for the University of Utah. So I was able to be remote. I was cycling around Hawaii, and then I like went to Minnesota to spend time with my friend, all while working on my proposal for a PhD school. And there was just this lack of desire to want to work on it. Like the proposal. And I think every PhD student goes through that. We all go through like the phase where we don't want to touch the proposal. We don't want to touch our research, whatnot. And then after, my time in Minnesota with my friend, I did this like huge national park tour of the Southwest where I biked from national park to national park. I connected 6 national parks while on my bicycle. And it was during that moment, and meanwhile, I'm still teaching for the University of Utah, right? Like I'm still teaching, I'm still earning a paycheck. I'm just doing everything while on my bicycle and contemplating life. And so it was while on that journey that I was like, I think I just would prefer not to have to escape school or escape work to go on an adventure. I would just rather make the adventures my career and then go from there. And so it was while I was like on this tour, on this bike tour, I was connecting 6 national parks, that I was like, I'm just going to start my own guiding company.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I guess at that point, I didn't return. Like, I guess at that point, I knew I was going to start my guiding company, and I didn't return to PhD school. But it's not like entrepreneurship was like weighing on my mind for years or semesters, and finally I like pulled the trigger and went to entrepreneurship. It was more like I had already removed myself substantially, and I was kind of just working on my proposal here and there, and I was just teaching online when I had this like aha moment in nature, right, where I'm just like, I'm just going to start my own company. So it was a solid probably 2 or 3 year process where I had to really figure out if I wanted to leave academia, because, to get to your PhD level, you've already spent so much of your life in academia, and you've already dedicated so much energy and time into academia. So to leave that and to leave that culture is a big deal. So it was probably like a 2 or 3 year process for me to finally remove myself completely. And it happened when I had like the aha moment of, I'm just going to start my own company.
Wow. You've never shared that with me. And that's I think it is a beautiful process, because it had kind of that self-discovery, and you had that aha moment that really led your life. And, you and I have never talked about depression before, but I got hit with it, not during my master's at all, but during my PhD.
Yeah.
I got hit with it really hard during my PhD. I remember waking up every day and being like, I don't want to be alive. And I think like the PhD isn't, when you're getting it, it's not very glorious. We used to joke that, I used to joke that I get paid peanuts. Like you don't get paid much. You don't get a lot of compliments, and you're constantly trudging through stuff, which I guess is fine. That's kind of how it goes. You get critiqued a lot, which you grow a lot from that. But gosh, like when you're sometimes in some experiences where we are experiencing all that depression, and it just feels like this big burden and weight on our chest, is it something that's telling us it's time to make a pivot in life? And maybe, right? And I love that, you took the time to just be like, I'm going to focus on myself a little bit. You went and did those deep reflections in Maine, you got some solitude, and eventually the universe kind of spoke to you. And I love that.
Yeah. And I think that's so important because tons of people experience depression. Tons of people are unhappy with their life circumstances. They're unhappy with their careers. They're unhappy with something. Tons of people. And at the end of the day, when you ask these people, what is it that makes you happy? A lot of times they're going to say, I don't know, right? They don't know what makes them happy or what they'd rather do. And I think it's important to realize that a lot of people aren't given the time and they're not given the space, or maybe like a journaling activity to actually sit down and think about what they want, like what they want out of life. And because we're so busy with work, or some people have kids, who knows, some people are, PhD students who work during the day and do their research at night, like our time is so packed full of things that people don't take the time to sit with themselves and figure out what they want out of life. And until you know that, it's really hard to make a pivot. It's really hard to make a pivot, and it's really hard to take that first step when you don't even know what you're after. So for me, there's a lot of PhD students that go on antidepressants, right? Tons.
Absolutely. Yep.
I wasn't okay with that. For me, I was like, I know that I just need adventure. I think I just need time to myself. I'll figure this out without being medicated. And so for me, like escaping to Maine for a year and purposely like journaling every single night. And it was a simple journal. All I did was every single night for like 4 months, all I did was complete the sentence, when I die, I want to be known for ... And then the PhD side of me was like, great, after 4 months, theme that. Figure out what you're telling yourself every single night that you want to be known for before you die, or by the time you die, right? So it wasn't like I sat down and detailed my day. I just completed a sentence. And then there was like one time in Salt Lake City where I went to Whiskey Street and I had like fried pickles and a beer. And I wrote down I had like this giant yellow legal pad and a pencil because I wanted to be able to erase. And I just wrote down everything I wanted in life in no like order, no priority, just everything I wanted in life. And then the PhD side of me said, great, theme these, group them, theme them, name them, figure it out. And my first priority wasn't PhD school. My second priority wasn't PhD school. My third one was. But I think what's important is to realize that it wasn't number one and it wasn't number two. Mm-hmm. And then like when I themed, like when I die, I want to be known for ... It wasn't PhD school. It wasn't my research. So I think what's so important, and I did a lot of those exercises, because when you're making a huge decision in your life, you need to be pretty sure. Or I wanted to be pretty sure. So I think it's important to just like take the time for yourself and do like honest contemplation or like reflection and figure out what is it that you want in life. And sometimes you have to like write down a whole lot of stuff and figure out what it's telling you. So yeah, I forget what we were talking about that brought me to that. But
one of the things I loved is that you did pivot away, and I've never thought about this, but you pivoted away from academia. I stayed in it, and I'm like, it's still kind of an interesting process for me, but I wanted to focus on the pivot. And I've never thought about the pivot possibly being the size of an elephant. And it might be something that has to be taken at bite-sized chunks, like the classic, like break it up in these small pieces. And I feel like maybe through doing these simple, just complete the sentence, or just, putting everything down, doesn't have to be prioritized or whatever. You started taking small steps. And then before you knew it, you've gone miles and you've gone miles. And now you're like, okay, Like I have an idea. I now have also had an aha moment. I've had all this journaling, all these reflections. I've been evaluating my journaling. I've been evaluating my reflections. I've now had an aha moment. Okay, now I know I want to start belay expeditions or something of that sort. That's a million steps right there. That's a ton of steps that you took. And I never thought about that. The pivot itself, it could be comprised of a lot of steps like that. And I think that one of the things I also love about a pivot is the action of doing. And I feel like in life, we end up looking for an employer, and then we always are providing for other people. And sometimes that's how it goes. Some people have, a family and they got to provide for their kids or whatnot. But it feels like sometimes in life, we're constantly providing for others, providing for other situations, and we forget to do something creative for ourselves. And when we can do something creative for ourselves, I feel like, my gosh, it just like gives me so much vigor in life when I'm able to do that.
Yeah. I think I recently read this book, and it's called Vivid Vision by author Cameron Herold.
Okay.
And I loved it because the pivot is the hardest part. Because if you don't know where you're going, there's no pivot, right? But once you pivot, you know where you're going and you start moving in that direction, whether it's baby steps or ginormous steps. Like when you know the direction you're headed, you can move towards that direction. And so like Cameron Herold's book, Vivid Vision, I really love because he, sits you down for an hour and he has you write, because he says there's power in writing, and I believe that. He has you write your ideal future. Now this could be many domains in life. What's your ideal relationship with your spouse? What's your ideal relationship with your children? What's your ideal financial situation? What's your ideal career situation? What about the house you live in? Okay, so now he specifically works with business owners. So he's like, what's your ideal business or brand? Like, where do you want to be, right? And he has you write it for 3 years out. So this isn't like by the time you die, you want this. He wants it like near future, but like long enough out where you can at least make some good ground. And he has you write your ideal future. And then his whole reasoning is because when you see that, when you can visualize, when you know what you actually want, then every single day you can make decisions that get you there. Because sometimes we're making decisions in life that actually aren't getting us to where we want to be. Therefore, we're just running in circles. We're just doing decisions out of monotony or because we think that's what we need to do. And maybe it's taking us backwards. Maybe it's taking us in circles, whatnot. But he has you like visualize your ideal future, write it down. And then every single day when you make decisions, is that getting you to your ideal future? Or is it getting you away from it? Is it completely irrelevant? But I love that book because it makes the pivot easier. When you know where you're going, he says, when you know where you're going, you can make decisions and apply them. And he specifically says, go out in nature and sit there for an hour or 3 hours and write your ideal future. And he says that because he understands that you just need to take personal time away from your work, personal time away from your family, personal time away from everything. So you can actually sit there and think for yourself. And then you'll know where to go.
Yeah, I love that.
Or at least make those small decisions to get you there.
Right. And I've never heard of Vivid Vision, nor have I heard of Cameron Herold. But I got to imagine this advice to go visualize your ideal future and go do it in nature just connected so strongly with you because you have a large background also studying spirituality out in nature and those aha moments and what that does to us for long-term benefits of our life. But yeah, the pivot is so tough. And I mean, I don't have a ton of experience pivoting, but I got to imagine for myself, if I was to write out my ideal future and see those words there and be like, okay, this is it. And I'm able to put it maybe ultimately after doing this a lot, maybe be able to put it into one concise sentence. Then I can start taking those steps to make it happen. And I know that me and my wife, we recently started a little small side hustle And we recently realized we were kind of just lacking direction. And so we're like, okay, let's sit down and put together weekly, daily, monthly goals, quarterly goals that are achievable. So it's like, okay, over this next month, let's get 1 customer. Over the month after, let's get 2 customers, and like achievable goals that we know we can achieve if we just put a little time into, get out there, do a little marketing, talking to people, whatever it is. And then it's like, okay, we can do that. And so I love the advice that Cameron Harold gave. I think he was really on it with helping people pivot, because the pivot is the hardest part. And then once you pivot, you start getting, the momentum starts picking up pretty quick. You start going down an awesome path.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
how far?
I mean, I've never pivoted and regretted it. I don't know anybody who's pivoted and regretted their pivot.
I love that.
I've
never thought about it like that. I love that. And I've never come across someone that has pivoted and regretted it.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It's really easy to just get content with life, and become depressed and not really know what to do about it. So when someone actually takes the courage and takes that pivot, I've never known anybody who's regretted that.
Yeah.
So I'm so stoked about your side hustle with your wife. What's her name?
Her name is Jessa.
Jessa.
Yeah.
I'm so stoked about this side hustle with you guys. It reminds me of, so when I taught marketing for Parks and Recreation at the U of U, I loved teaching that class, and I had never marketed anything in my life. I've been in academia my whole life, or I was a guide for another company. I never marketed anything, but here I am tasked with teaching marketing for Parks and Recreation. And so I said, no problem. What we're going to do is we're going to take a marketing plan, and every single week, we're going to go through one part of the marketing plan. And then on Thursday, because that was Tuesday, right? Tuesday, we go through the marketing plan, and then on one section of it. And then on Thursday, we have a real world marketer come in for Parks and Recreation. And I tasked my students with finding the marketers. And they were incredible. We had like the head marketer of Black Diamond come in. We had the head marketer of Browning come in. We had the head marketer of Spirit Airlines come in. The Waldorf Astoria. I mean, these were huge marketers coming in every Thursday. And what those marketers were tasked with, and this is all the students gave them their homework. The students said, this is what we talked about this week. We want to see it in the real world. Okay? So these marketers are coming in and they're talking about a section of the marketing plan. It was like one of the most awesome courses I had ever taught. And it's all because of students. But I remember this one marketer came in. He had started a ski company, okay? And he grew up in Minnesota where there's not really any mountains, but there were a ton of city parks. So he created a ski. He lives in Salt Lake City now. He created a ski that was a trick ski. It was to be used for tricks at your city parks, okay? And he said the first year he launched his business, he was like dreaming. He was just envisioning. He just knew he was going to be like this millionaire, living on a yacht and having a house in Park City and having a house somewhere else. Like he was going to be living the life, okay? And in his first year, he literally sold one pair of park skis. And then the next year, he sold 2. And the next year, it was like 4, okay? And by the 5th year, his 5th year in business, he was finally able to quit his job at the Pizza Hut. All right?
Wow.
And when we asked about how he stayed motivated when he's selling like 1 or 2 sets of skis a year and it took him 5 years, he's like, growth is growth. He's like, I don't care if you sell a set. I don't care if you sell one thing one year, but if you grew the next year, that's growth. He's like, and if you grew the year after that, that's growth. He's like, all too often we have these expectations where we're going to meet these big revenue goals or big sales goals. And he's like, I just always reminded myself that growth was growth. So I think about your side hustle and how you're like, this month we're going to do 1 and next month we're going to do 2. And that's exactly what he said. He said, growth is growth, And I think that with all like people who are about to pivot and they might be expecting like magnificent results really, really quick. And I think at the end of the day, we just need to realize that mountains are conquered with baby steps. And, just growth is growth and forward progress is forward progress. And just like, it's the pivot that's hard.
Yeah.
And just to take baby steps after that for growth.
I love how you put that metaphorically into going up a mountain, and, growth is growth. A step up the mountain is a step up the mountain. And I think sometimes that we do, and I'm definitely guilty of it, getting caught up with kind of grandiose visions for ourselves and being like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to just make all this money really quick. And then I'm going to go buy myself a 4-story cabin up in Telluride and I'm going to be good for the rest of my life. And it's like, okay, slow down here. Let's focus on, growth is growth, some small steps. And I think one of the things that can be challenging with growth is for me to be happy with small growth steps, I need to quantify it. I need to track it. So my growth might be, hey, on my Instagram account for my side hustle, which by the way, for those listening out there, my side hustle is called Backyard Backcountry. A growth piece might be like, hey, I got 5 more people to follow my Instagram profile this month. Next month, I want it to be 6. Next month, I want it to be 7. And if I quantify it and put into those small pieces like that, it really helps me out a lot. But I also want to go back towards your marketing class. And one of the things I've always loved a lot about teaching is that I think students forget how much teachers learn while they're teaching a class. And I used to be, before grad school, I was a high school biology and chemistry teacher. And I was in undergrad, I was a biology major and chemistry minor. And I left undergrad having those degrees. I can't really say I felt strong in biology or chemistry, but after teaching biology and chemistry just at the high school level, I felt really strong at it. I was able to talk about it and I came to really love it. And so when you taught this class about marketing, you had to learn so much. And so have you started using a lot of what you learned for Belay Expeditions? Because I know with my side hustle, me and my wife, a motto that we have is, if you build it, they don't come. Like you got to get the brand out there. People need to know what you're doing. They need to trust you. They need to see that you're doing something that has benefit to their lives. And so what did you learn from the marketing class you taught that you carried over to Belay Expeditions?
I think what academia provides you, what textbooks provide you, is a base knowledge, a foundation to work on, methods, strategies, right? So just have worked through that marketing plan with my students, I knew that it would be really smart to have a marketing plan, Or I also taught business and nonprofit for PRT. So we had to do a business plan. I had the students do a business plan in that class. And so when I started Belay Expeditions, the very first thing I did was I sat down and made myself a business plan. So I was like, gotta have a business plan. And this is important because it tells you whether you're going to be a sole proprietor, if you're going to be an LLC, if you're going to be an S Corp or a nonprofit, what type of nonprofit. It tells you like who's going to sit on your board of directors if you are going the nonprofit route. Like these things are in fact very helpful when you're building out your business or when you're building out your marketing plan. So it gives you tools to be successful. All right. But at the end of the day, the inspiring moments come from the real world marketers that came in and spoke to us. Or when I taught business and nonprofit, we had a bunch of businesses in PRT and a bunch of nonprofits come in and talk to us as well. And some of them are really inspiring. And, when you're making a pivot in your life, you need inspiration. So I think, I was able to carry forward from academia a lot of tools that helped me successfully build a business plan or that helped me successfully build a marketing plan. But it's the stories like the park ski guy that keeps me moving when maybe I haven't sold a journey in a really long time. But I'm like, hey, growth is growth. And we've already grown substantially from last year. So, I don't know. I think a lot of tools and techniques come from academia. But it's really important to have like mentors and like inspirational people in your life to keep you moving forward when like, times get a little tougher.
I use mentors for starting a side hustle. I've never done anything entrepreneur. And I now have 2 mentors that I keep in touch with about the business, tell them what I'm doing and whatnot. But I wanted to go back to, I mentioned that teaching is a great way to learn, but I love that you focused on it's base knowledge. And then when you start applying it, and you start actually doing it, the act of doing and applying it, and I guess, some people might refer to that as baptism by fire. That's when I learn the most, is when I apply those skills. And I think that one thing with academia is, yes, I am a professor, but in my little entrepreneur side hustle, a lot of the skills that I've learned from there have helped a lot with just my organization, being able to, I also wrote a business plan. It helped me with all kinds of tools. I identified who my customer base is, who's my customer population. I got that identified, but a lot of the critical thinking skills and organization and writing, and also just the self-confidence that comes with academia to be able to prosper and flourish independently was something that really helped me a lot. But I wanted to take a minute and transfer over and I want to hear about Belay Expeditions. And I wanted to hear about, so one of the things going through your website and whatnot, I loved the accessibility that I mentioned earlier when I was introducing you. It seems like your trips are very accessible, but I also love that you are bringing, you're focusing on these outcomes, these long-term kind of psychological impacts that are really positive for people. And so why don't you tell me about what your journeys kind of look like, how it goes, and maybe how you plan to make sure that your clients just have a really great, memorable, and productive trip.
Yeah. So, my journeys, there's a lot of different parts to Belay Expeditions. Like we do through hikes, we do through bikes, we do mountaineering trips, we do backpacking trips. And so with a lot of different types of trips, they all really come down to 3 values. And I really try to stress these 3 values throughout each journey. And we don't necessarily talk about them. You don't have to talk about your values to get people to learn them. You have to do your values. You have to walk your talk, and then people learn them. So, my 3 values are be outside, be simple, be in pursuit. All right. So be outside. All my journeys are outside, right? When I get told I should have more hotels, well, I'm be outside. I'm not be inside. Your values guide you. They are your decision makers. So, every single night we're outside. Our last night is celebratory, and that is inside, right? We get a hotel, we take a shower, we go to the hot springs. Our last night is celebratory, but we're outside. We're simple because people cannot be by themselves these days. They don't know how to be in their own mind these days. But if you want personal transformation, if you want to figure out what you want to do in life, you need to be in your own mind. So we are simple because we are not glamping. We are not entertaining. I do not schedule their every hour so that they are entertained on the mountains. Like we wake up, we eat our breakfast, we sip our coffee, we hike. We go to camp, and they'll have hours to themselves. And they're told to bring a book, and they're told to bring a journal. And we have hours at camp where we can either have a conversation about life or something, or they can read and just journal and be in their own head. But it's actually really hard for people to not be entertained. And I've had that feedback. I've had the feedback where they've learned that they're not okay, or they need to do better at being by themselves. So we are very simple in the fact that we do not overbook their time. Like you're out there to conquer a mountain or through hike a trail. And that is our goal. And all other time will be spent like with yourself, just figuring out life, right? We're simple in the fact that we only carry what's necessary. A lot of guiding companies are going to have you carry a ton of stuff. But the beauty about backpacking, the beauty about long distance expeditions is that it teaches you what you need in life and what you don't need in life. And we only carry what's necessary. And the whole reason for that is that they can see that you actually don't need a lot in life to be happy, right? Some people don't want to make a pivot because they don't know how they're going to pay their bills. They don't know like what they're going to lose, right? But at the end of the day, go talk to all the thru hikers and thru bikers. Their favorite days in life are spent on trail with nothing on their back, but like 30 possessions. So you actually don't need a lot in life to be at your happiest moments. And so we don't carry a lot. We are very simple and we only carry the necessary. And it's so that they can learn, they can do whatever they want. They can pivot in whatever direction they want, knowing that they actually don't need a lot to be happy. Like continue forward in that direction happily. And then the third value is be in pursuit. And I think that's probably the one we focus on the most. And it's because be in pursuit is literally just like living a life with meaningful intention, living a life in pursuit of your dreams, living a life where you're constantly working on being better every day, right? Like you're not settling, you're not content, you're not unhappy. And I only think be in pursuit is my third value. It's last in line because I think it comes once you can simplify your life, you have a bunch of time to figure out what you want to be in pursuit of. But it's going to take simplifying your life and cutting a lot of things out of it to make that time and space to be in pursuit. So those are our three values. And be in pursuit comes into all of the journeys, whether we're in pursuit of a 14,000 foot summit, whether we're in pursuit of a terminus of a multi-100, multi-thousand foot trail. We're always in pursuit on the journeys. Literally, where we're climbing a mountain or hiking hundreds of miles, but also in our minds, where we are becoming better versions of ourselves every day. Mm-hmm. So that's, it's through hiking, it's through biking, it's mountaineering, it's backpacking. And I also want to make the distinction here between mountaineering and backpacking. Because a lot of people are going to associate mountaineering with ice climbing and glacier crossing and high altitude alpinism, right? Like that's what people are going to be like, well, that's mountaineering. What you don't do is you don't do mountaineering, right? Because I climbed the Colorado 14ers. And I think as a business, just as a researcher, you have to define your terms. All right. And so for me, I said, if you're after the summit of a mountain, you are a mountaineer. Mm-hmm. You're after the summit. And if you're after the distance of a trail, if you're after the entire length of a trail, you're a thru hiker or you're a thru biker, and that's backpacking. So I kind of had to clarify what in my company is mountaineering and what is backpacking. And so I put the thru hikers and the thru bikers and backpacking because they're spending multiple nights out there in pursuit of miles. Whereas my mountaineers, they're in pursuit of a summit. So that's the distinction Belay Expeditions had to make for those two sports. And I think the be in pursuit journeys where we focus on, becoming better versions of ourselves every day, the mountaineering trips do really well for that. And for my Be Simple journeys where we focus on simplifying our lives and decluttering, the thru hikes and thru bikes do really good at that because it teaches you to get rid of things because you're carrying them for hundreds of miles. So that's what Belay Expeditions is. We're a company that is an advocate of being in pursuit every day, and we understand as well as support simplifying your life in order to do that. And the best teacher of all is nature. Nature teaches simplicity best. So that's kind of what we're about.
That was wonderful, Megan. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was a lot to take away too. And I need to do the same. I need to write down my values for, like my side hustle and some other stuff. And like, I love that those become your decision makers.
They are 100% your decision makers.
Yeah. And like, I've seen this with, with like tech companies, like you'll see like Meta has their values and Google has their values. Well, that's helping them make their decisions. And I love the part about being simple. And so I have a big background going backpacking. And so back in the summer of 2021, I took my girlfriend time, my now wife, backpacking for 10 nights in Yosemite. And we did a route, which we were off trail a bunch. We got some scrambles in, like class 3 stuff, and just had a really great time. And it was 10 nights. And at that point in my life, and it continues on to today, I started getting really, really busy and juggling career and juggling my personal pursuits and whatnot. And I remember on that trip, we had no cell phone service the entire time. So we were able to disconnect it at night. It was wonderfully connective with me and my wife at that time. And we still crave that experience. Like we talked today on the phone, we're like, gosh, we need to make sure we go backpacking this summer because it's so powerful for our relationship. It's so powerful for us. But I remember on that trip, it took me probably like close to 5 full days to actually feel relaxed and to chill out. And I remember those first 5 nights or so, my wife and I would joke because I was always be like up wandering around, trying to do something, try something out, change, like move this around, move that around, always doing something instead of like relax and whatnot. And like, I reflected on that and I thought to myself, my gosh, like I'm so used to go, go, go. I lead a life of go, go, go. I get up early, I exercise, and I get going with work, and then I do this, and then it's this, and it's just constant until I go to bed. And that has become how I function. And it's become a part of my life for better or worse. And my gosh, it took me 5 days to turn that off. And I couldn't believe how long it took me to turn off. And so then hearing you talk about simplicity and whatnot, I was like, gosh, like for me and the way that I lead my life, I need to not just focus on simplicity once, but I need to revisit on a regular occurrence to get myself redialed back to my personal values, to the values of my wife and my family. And so I love that with your expeditions and your journeys, you're offering up plenty of time at nighttime for people to have a simplistic psychological experience, a simplistic experience out in nature, simplistic experience with those that are around them. So I love your values. How long did it take you to identify your 3 values of be outside, be simple, and be in pursuit?
It was probably a month long.
Yeah, those are powerful.
Well, here's the thing, because you really have to figure out what is it that you're about. And that's what's going to make your company, right? Because your values are not my values and my values are not somebody else's values. And with those unique values is what's going to provide your company's uniqueness, right? And so for me, I was like, be simple. I'm like, am I be simple because I want to be eco-friendly, right? The simpler we are, the less carbon footprint we have on nature. I'm very pro low carbon footprint, or am I be simple because you can be in pursuit of your dreams? Well, I'm both, but really I'm about being in pursuit of your dreams. So I had to really think about is it be minimal? Is it be simple? Is it, just ridiculous things, or be outside? Was it be outside? Was it be in nature? Was it be, all these terms are going to come to you and you have to figure out which term is it that you're actually about, or they say each company should have 3 to 5 values. So I was like, well, maybe being sustainable, environmentally sustainable is one of my values. So I had to really think about, is environmental sustainability one of my values? Mm-hmm. Could it be a 4th value, Mm-hmm. So I think the whole process took probably a month because you battle with terms. You battle with how many values do you actually have, why you believe that value. Maybe there's something deeper there that's actually the value. So I think that process there took like a solid month.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think it really should take some time, because that's going to that is the direction you're going to take your company, your business.
Yes.
And all that thought went into it. And I haven't thought about your values, but just the example you gave of should it be simple or be minimal. And I really like be simple better, but I can see how, like, hey, let's compare this, maybe write out the pros and cons of each one. Like, how does that get me going in the direction I want to go? I feel like that just solidifies what your company is about. And again, you're doing almost a second pivot here. So you pivoted out of academia. Now you're starting your business, and what direction within that business do you want to pivot towards? So you're doing this month-long process of these values, and this is a stepwise thing to get Belay Expeditions off of the ground and whatnot.
But
I love
once
that
you
a lot.
have your values, it makes all your decisions so much easier. I get a lot of trip ideas in my mind, and at the end of the day, I'm like, does it embody being pursuit?
Mm-hmm.
Does it embody being simple? Does it embody being outside? So, or even like what I sell in the shop. Everybody says I should sell gear. Everybody says I should sell stickers. My shop should be full of things if you left it up to the general public. At the end of the day, being simple is, for me, not being materialistic. Being outside is not being materialistic. Being simple to me is, focusing on few and not many. And being simple to me is, there definitely is a materialism aspect there for me, 100%. And when I'm selling gear, and when I'm selling stickers, and when I'm selling water bottles and whatnot, to me, that is materialistic. That's taking from the earth. That's just going to ultimately end in the landfill someday. So I don't sell things in my shop. I sell experiences only. So I think once you decide your values and what those values mean to you, you can really start to walk your talk in a company.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And
or just your life in general.
Well, that's what I was thinking was, do your clients get back to you like, hey, Megan, like, I have totally adopted the 3 values of Belay Expeditions into my life, and it has just made me so happy. Do you get those testimonials from people?
I do. Yeah. I get people who love the be simple aspect, who really took that to heart. The be in pursuit aspect, I get a bunch of different people for a bunch of different reasons, but usually one of the values speaks to them.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, it's interesting how, in a lot of ways, you're kind of helping with people's identities in a way. I was thinking about that earlier when you were talking about mountaineering, and you take a step of the mountain, you go up the mountain, like you're mountaineering. If you go backpacking, you're a backpacker. And I was kind of thinking about that and identity. And I was thinking about, the thought went through my head, like, if you go backpacking once, you're a backpacker. If you climb the mountain once, you're a mountaineer. And I love that, like, not only is that going on with giving people confidence to do that stuff and whatnot, but these values. And so I think that you're having this very positive effect on this very strong thing, people's identity. And identity is such a strong thing of how we perceive ourselves. Oftentimes I don't perceive myself super well with what reality is, but it helps me to be grounded, and to be grounded in personal values, and to be grounded in, hey, I'm a trail runner. Hey, I'm an ultra runner. Hey, I'm a backpacker. And it's like, okay, that's where I am. That's Brian. And I think, like, you really set that up long-term for your clients, which is really cool.
Oh, thanks.
So I wanted to hear about, I was looking through your website, and I saw that you got Mount Kilimanjaro coming up.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So have you, when is that coming up?
That's January. It's just 5 weeks away.
Oh my gosh, in January. Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's coming
and
right up.
that's a be in pursuit trip, I mean, when you look at, like, the values, I mean, these people are after a 7 summit. one of the world's 7 summits. They're going to the top of Africa. And, there was a lot of mountains I could have chosen. Or, there's a lot of mountains to choose from out there. And I thought, what embodies Be in Pursuit the most?
Yeah.
Take me to a 7 summit. So, yeah, I'm super stoked for Kili. And it won't be the last 7 summit. We'll do all 7. Every other year, Belay Expeditions is offering a 7 summit. So Kilimanjaro is our first 7 summit, and that comes in January.
Oh, that's exciting. That's
exciting. And I have
exciting.
a full team. There's 11 of us.
Wow. If someone that's listening is interested in one of your future journeys, how do they get in touch with you and kind of reserve that?
Well, you can go to the website. That's probably the easiest, is belayexpeditions.com.
Okay.
And you'll check out all the journeys there. But if they have like a certain journey in mind, if they have questions, they can always contact me. And there's like a little contact button where you can send a message, or you can simply just email me at belayexpeditions@gmail.com. So
Nice.
My phone number's on the website too. I'm not a super secretive person. So, they can just go to the website and there'll be a million ways there to contact me.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. I want to get back to selling experiences, which I think is so powerful. Like the impact of that. And I think of that at this time of year, especially with holidays. I'm a pretty bad consumer. I don't really pay attention to what's out there, new products, new goods or whatnot. I'm pretty simplistic in consumerism world. And I always really struggle a lot during the holiday season of what gifts to get. And so I'm always thinking about what experiences can I get people. But I was also thinking like Belay Expeditions is just this fantastic experience. It really helps people on a number of levels. But I really love the spiritual component that you bring with Belay Expedition. And that's just, getting in touch with your inner self, understanding yourself to a fuller degree. And I was thinking of like, there's the experiential aspect of Belay Expeditions. You have a shop, you sell experiences, but I was like, gosh, like instead of selling gear, like I wonder if there's any like types of Belay Expeditions books or journals or something like that that just coincides so well with what you're doing.
Yeah, so I have 2 comments on that. One about the spiritual component, but also the other component. I am in the process of writing a book.
Nice.
I mean, it'll be done by, the end of the year, but I'm in the process.
Good.
And so that's coming, but no time soon. At least give me a year. And then I am making my own calendar system, right? I don't function without to-do list, right? I'll run around like a chicken with my head cut off if I don't have a to-do list every morning. And I certainly can't function without like a desktop calendar in the physical form where you can write in the squares. And so, and I think that's a habit that a lot of people should adopt if they haven't. Like if you want to be productive in life and you want to make steps towards betterment, then you need to sit down and take time and write a to-do list, the things you want to do. And you need to start checking them off. Even if it's just one a day, that's 365 items a year towards your dream. So I'm in the process of having a Belay Expeditions to-do list. I'm in the process of having a Belay Expeditions calendar. That falls all under Be in Pursuit, So yes, journal's coming, book is coming, but those are like kind of side passion projects that I do work on probably every day. They're just not here yet. At the end of the day, the journeys are what Belay Expeditions is. Everything else is just complementary, to help people pursue those dreams or pursue that simple life when they're not on a journey.
Yeah.
So, those are coming, but
that's so cool. I'm glad you're doing that. I feel like that's so Megan, and like you have so much to offer, and that ties back to the start of our conversation with like that type of stuff can help you pivot. It also connects with everything at Belay Expeditions. There was a quote I read on your website that was, "Be you, better, outside, simple, and in pursuit. There's your three values right there. And, I love adventuring. I honestly wish I can go backpacking 3 months of every summer or longer, 6 months. I wish I could through hike every year. I'd love to get out and go through hike the Arizona Trail. I'd love to go out and through hike the Pacific Northwest Trail. I'm always thinking about through hiking. You've had a lot of experiences through hiking. I've only had one major one. I was on the Pacific Crest Trail for 3 months. I didn't even finish. But my gosh, like it changed me a ton. And that was back in 2009. I'm reflecting back now 13 years. And it was just so fantastic. I could see all that stuff that you're doing. I think it's wonderful to be helping people's lives. And I think that you're doing something that benefits society, it helps people's lives. And there is the overall umbrella of doing the journeys, but there's so many small things that people can be doing when they're not out with belay expeditions or they're not out in nature, and they got to kind of get back to some of the responsibilities in life. What are some things they can do to stay grounded? And I think that hearing you say that you're writing this book and doing the calendar, that really helps people stay grounded. So I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I'm about making the person better, making the person happier, making the person pursue their dreams and like believing in themselves, because, you know, you can have a goal of helping society, but at the end of the day, it's on the person. Mm-hmm. A happy person will contribute to a happy society. So I'm really all about the person. Yep. And I think it's because I've been there. I've been lost. I've been depressed. I've had to put myself through like little personal journal exercises to figure out what was best for me, you know, like, so I know how it feels to be lost and then, you know, work your way towards betterment. But I wanted to mention the spiritual component because I think that is key to the simplicity aspect. You know, if you get on my website and you read the quotes, there's a whole bunch about ridding materials and ridding stuff. And there is a spiritual component behind it. And you can almost say it's theological because it comes from the writings of a Catholic monk, a Catholic Trappist monk, Thomas Merton. And now I'm not religious by any means. So I'm, you know, is nature my cathedral? Yes, 100%. So, but I am obsessed with monks living because monks live simply. Monks don't own anything. Everything a monk has on their body or in their room belongs to the monastery. They don't own anything. And monks devote their lives to either God, if you are a Christian monk, or themselves and society. Maybe if you're like a Buddhist monk or a Hindu monk, right? Like, monks live the most simple of all beings. And so their practice is what I mirror on belay expeditions. And I'm going to go back to my advisor in my PhD program, Ed Riddell, who's brilliant and I love him, but he explained it the best. And I think he took it from Thomas Merton. But he said, look into a mirror. All right, look into a mirror. All the dust particles, all the spit from the toothpaste, all the makeup, everything that's dirtying that mirror prevents you from seeing yourself best, seeing who you really are. All right. And as you wipe away that mirror, getting cleaner and cleaner with each thing that comes off that mirror, you begin to see who you really are. All right. And that would be like a very Buddhist take on it. Is the cleaner the mirror, the more you can see yourself as you are. Now, if you were to take a Christian view on it, you would liken it to a window. And God is on the other side, okay? And God's this like ray of sunshine beaming through the window. And for every dust particle or every piece of mud, anything that's on that window is blocking that light, right? Blocking that sun ray, blocking God from you. And as you wipe your window clean, you can feel the light of God more. You can feel the warmth of God more. So there's this metaphor here that the simpler you are, the cleaner you are, the more you rid, you can fully embrace who you are. Or if you're Christian, feel God more, right? So that's kind of what I strive for. Like when we're on belay expeditions, we remove the technology, right? That keeps us from spending time with ourselves. We remove the entertainment. We remove so much stuff, all the unnecessary materialistic items that might keep us busy, right? The more you carry in your pack, the more you're setting up at night, the more you're taking down in the morning, keeps you busy, all right? So we remove all the busyness. We remove all the clutter. And it gives us time to just be with ourselves and to see who we really are and to feel who we really are. And so there is this spiritual component that is taken from the monks that I apply to belay expeditions. And it's also that we can see and feel who we truly are and like what we want to become.
Yeah.
So there's this other story that, you know, if you're this other metaphor that if your cup is already full of liquid, what can you gain? Nothing. Your cup is full. You're not gaining any new beverage, right? But if you empty the beverage, then you can become full again.
Right.
And that's just another way of saying we must rid all of our excess to become something again. And so there is a spiritual component. There is be simple. Be simple is a very spiritual component. And we don't preach spirituality in the mountains. We don't preach religion in the mountains. It's just a framework by which we operate.
Yeah, that's fantastic for removing all that busyness. And I think that I struggled with that for 5 nights on my 10-night backpacking trip. I was maybe incrementally removing busyness every single night, but when you remove that busyness, you start seeing yourself some more in the mirror, or you start seeing that ray of light through the window to see God. I thought that was just fantastic, Megan. So I wanted to wrap up today. I know we're running out of time here. And Megan, I feel like we could go on for another hour or two. I got to have you back on the podcast. Today's conversation was, man, I feel so good right now.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it was so fascinating. I really enjoyed it. I love the depth you brought, all the explanations. That was just so fantastic. For those of you listening out there, please check out belayexpeditions.com. Remember, this is very accessible expeditions that Megan puts on. Don't feel like you're limited by physicality. Like everyone can do this and get involved. And Megan's doing something that really is lifetime beneficial, memorable, and just, sets up really good practices in lives. So Megan, thank you so much for coming today. And I hope that I can get you back on the podcast someday. I'd love to get you back on after you write your book. That sounds just so fantastic. And good luck with writing that. I look forward to seeing your calendar out there, and have fun out in Africa, climbing Kilimanjaro. You're going to have a great time.
It's crazy. Well, thank you so much for having me. It was fun. I love conversations like this. I love when you can get a little deeper into things. So I appreciate that conversation, and I appreciate being on the podcast. Yeah,
and I feel like, there's so much depth associated with nature. And, we were just getting into a little bit of it today. And so that was fun. Yeah. Definitely. All right. Well, thank you, Megan. I'm going to throw on the outro music, and we'll call it an episode.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.